So what's going on in the RV industry these days? Well, I guess it depends on who you ask. If you look to Wall Street for these answers, well, what you're going to see is the last 7 or 8 years, sales have boomed. They've skyrocketed. But you also see over the last 12 months how there's been a somewhat of a rapid decline in sectors of the industry. If you go online to find out what's going on in the industry, well, you're going to read posts on Facebook and other users groups from frustrated consumers. Yeah, there's some happy consumers out there, but there's others who are just posting some miserable experiences. Well, I tell you what we're going to do. I'm at the Florida Super Show in Tampa, Florida, the largest RV show in the country. And when I come back, we're going to sit down with Justin Humphreys, the Chief Operating Officer of Airstream. And we're going to talk about the industry and his new products. So stay tuned, because that starts right now on the Gadget Guru. I'm at the Super Show in Tampa, Florida, and here with me is Justin Humphreys. Justin, first of all, it's great to see you.
Andy, it's great to see you again.
Last year when we were together at the show, when you were launching the Airstream Atlas, your title, you were Vice President. I believe you had marketing and service and everything under you. Just a few weeks later, and by pure coincidence, right after we published the video here, you got a promotion. Why don't you tell me about it?
I did. So our President and CEO, Bob Wheeler, was asked to be President and CEO of a new company called TH2. It's a joint venture that Thor went into on the tech side, which you might be interested in some of those things as well. With Bob's new responsibilities, he asked me to be Chief Operating Officer. So now I've got operations, engineering, finance, sales, service. Yeah, the role's expanded quite a bit.
And how has your life changed? I mean, this is a major public company. Thor is. Airstream, as we discussed last year, operates pretty much autonomously outside of the bubble.
Absolutely.
But you now have fiscal responsibility?
Yeah, I do. And it's, Bob Martin said, hey, no pressure, but it's Peter Orthwein's favorite company, you know, and he represents the OR of Thor. Mm-hmm. So it's a special brand, obviously iconic brand. So it's a big responsibility, something I take pretty serious, but jobs really changed dramatically. I mean, trying to solve problems for operations, a lot different than just sales and service, and the finance side and engineering's been great. I've always had interactions with those departments, but now I'm diving pretty deep, and I enjoy it. I love it.
And now you're involved with a lot more with the total industry picture. And I'll be honest, I'll be remiss if I don't bring this up. Let's talk about the financials. You are a COO now. If I look at where we were 12 months ago when we sat down, and I'm going to say this from memory, I believe that Thor stock was around $160 a share. It's now down to approximately 60%. I also look at, and I believe that Camping World is, if not the largest, one of your larger dealers. Their stock's down more than 70%. The entire RV industry is down approximately 7% over the same period. You know, while Airstream is part of Thor, how is Airstream affected the entire financial picture?
I think the biggest thing for us is we just watch those signs and those signals, because we want to manage our business tightly. We're a very conservative company, so when we see some noise out there, we pay a lot of attention to it. But what a difference 12 months make, right?
It really does.
We're in a trade war, which is driving up commodity pricing. Market doesn't like that at all. Interest rates have risen, which increases dealer financing. That's how dealers bring this inventory in, is through credit. And then the retail financing is going up. And as a result, I think Wall Street has really been very particularly concerned about the RV business from that standpoint, because of how it affects the consumer and all the pieces to it. So
okay, well, you're made in the USA product. How have the tariffs affected you? So
I think obviously with our trailers, a lot of aluminum, and aluminum was high on that, and one of the first products that was involved with it. So our pricing has gone up. But it's not only the raw materials that we use in our aluminum and steel, but all the components, you know, the water heater manufacturers, the furnace manufacturers, they're all buying steel and aluminum as well. So you're under siege not only from a raw material standpoint, but then also from an appliance standpoint. I think the industry thought it'd be pretty short term, and it's turned out to be a little longer term than I think the industry had originally thought. But overall, I'm not real concerned about it now, having been in it now for about 6 months. Certainly it's raised our prices and we've had to increase prices, but I don't think it was to the level that we were so panicked about at the beginning. It's not insignificant, but it's not as significant as we thought it might be.
You know, last year much of our conversation had to do with quality, and you had, I believe, just the year before instituted the 5 Rivet program, which is great. You know, again, I'd be remiss without saying, you know, what a difference a year makes. Today you have the RV Show USA, Chuck Woodbury, who is a noted, you know, RV journalist. He started RV horror stories on Facebook. Many of the discussions there are about Thor, and people aren't happy. Now that you're over it, what's going on with Thor, or what changes are being made to give consumers better experiences?
Well, the one thing I believe is misunderstood the most is that Thor would drive any quality of any of its subsidiaries. If there's a quality problem at Airstream, we own it. Mm-hmm. It's not an executive up in Elkhart at Thor who had anything to do with that. There's no mandate to, hey, cheapen your products or do something different. We stubbed our toe if that's a problem. So if it's another Thor product, it's really up to that individual company to maintain their quality and to maintain their standards for their customers. So I think some companies, even, and those are our peers, they're brothers of ours, right? We're both owned by the same owner through Thor, but some companies are addressing those better than others. You know, we're in a new digital age, as you know. So a cell phone, couple clicks of a button, and the whole world knows about your problem. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have a strategy to monitor social and try to reach out to these customers, because there's some real problems, and try to solve them, it's just going to fester. And as it festers, it becomes a big
with what
snowball.
you instituted at Airstream, with your quality control problems, and your incentives for dealers to really to take in every customer, and I believe you said that, you know, if they didn't buy it from you, they get rewarded for taking care of and getting in and out.
Absolutely.
Are you able to bring that expertise to the other side of the table?
We have actually shared the program with other Thor companies, and they've taken interest. Thor actually invested in their leadership team to go through an executive management school at at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. So through that, we were able to share some best practices, and we really we peeled back the curtain and showed them Oz on what we're doing. We've got a long way to go, but I think it's a step in the right direction. So when there's a breakdown with the customer, you're only as strong as your weakest link. That weakest link could be yourself, because you build a bad quality product. It could be the dealer not prepping it correctly, or the dealer not repairing it correctly, or a vendor piece. There's a lot of breakdowns in that process.
Is the vendor channel, is that getting better? Because I know there were a couple of vendors, I'm not going to name, that really were causing quite a few problems. Is that getting better?
I would love to tell you yes. I think that we have a long way to go. That we've actually, if you look at our new classic travel trailer, we've gone to some marine products because we think it's a little higher grade. You're out in the middle of the ocean, they got to work, right? It's a pretty extreme condition, but they're expensive. And I would challenge the RV vendors and suppliers to up their game. The challenge that they have, and it's a legitimate point, is that their manufacturers are pushing them to save money and kind of that commodity price point. Mm-hmm. We're actually taking a little different tact of saying, hey, where can we add money to make this better? If you could match our 3-year warranty, what would you do to build your product differently? Our volume is still relatively, even though we're up in sales, it's still relatively small, but we're trying to take that tact of including them in on the solution and saying, how can we build a better quality product and not nickel and dime it, but try to add value to it? Because I think the customers would pay a little more if they knew they were getting a better product.
And I absolutely agree with you, and I appreciate your candidness. And in full disclosure, I am a Thor shareholder. I do not own any Thor product, even though the Airstream ones are looking very, very appealing to me. Let me change gears here for a minute.
Sure.
Do you see a trend going in RV sales? I mean, we went through a 10-year period where things are just bustling. Have things slowed down now? Are they coming back? I know there's a lot of political stuff going on. I mean, as we're doing this, people are talking about a wall and government shutdown. What are you predicting of the next year or so to be like?
From an industry, so there's two ways we look at it. One is the industry, and then one is our own business. When we look at the industry portion, we do feel like we're closer to the mature part of the cycle. When you get to that mature part of the cycle, you start having seasonal influences, because in addition to the government shutdown and trade wars and walls and all these other noise that's real and it's out there, we're in the wintertime. And they're calling for 18 inches of snow in Ohio this weekend. So our Columbus dealer's not selling a lot right now, and where the past few years, it was tough to keep the dealers inventoried. They're inventoried going into the winter. So I feel like on top of all that, we're in a little bit more of a mature cycle. So from an industry standpoint, I don't see double-digit growth anytime soon. If anything, flat to maybe a point or two down. That's the bad news. The good news is that's on top of an all-time record year for the industry. So it's good business and people should be able to do well.
And you know, speaking of inventory, and this is a good segue to this product right behind us. This is the Airstream Atlas.
Yes.
You just launched it last year at the show. It's my understanding that if I was to walk in, or you were to walk in to an Airstream dealer tomorrow to buy one, it could be take 8 months to get that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. We've had, and I believe I mentioned this when we talked last, we feel there's this customer who wants something small but not cheap. And I think in the industry, people say, oh, you want small because you can't afford big. Well, it doesn't, you know, if you've owned a Prevost conversion, you want something small but nice. And we feel like we're in a unique position to offer that. And it has been a home run. We can't keep up. We're about 8 to 9 months out. We have a whole nother issue too with bin supply. That's been a bit of a challenge as they transition.
They're changing chassis.
Well, they're not only are they doing a new generation chassis, but they're changing production from Germany to South Carolina, and they've got ramp up issues in their new factory.
And that'll save you money on tariffs at that point.
Yeah, exactly, which is great. Creates U.S. jobs. The lead time should be down in terms of ordering. You don't have to ship them across the sea. So, but we have a bit of an issue of supply, getting enough chassis as they, you know, transfer that production.
So it's not a production capacity. It's getting the inventory of the necessary components.
Exactly. Okay. So, and what happens is we only have this many chassis, so we spread out our production as we get ready for the new one. And I think Mercedes would tell you they've had challenges with that transition to the States. So now, where we thought we would have them here at the show, we don't.
And again, I'm not an expert in Mercedes chassis. The good news is you are. What chassis is on this existing Atlas, and what's the model number of the new chassis? I've been reading a lot online, and I got to tell you, I'm confused.
We only build on the 3500, the heavy dutiest chassis for the the most payload capacity. And for us, we want as many options as they could possibly provide. We'd like a lot of their car options, whether it's the infotainment, sliding doors on our interstate, power doors, and many of those options will come available with the new generation. So we're excited about that. But for us, it is, we also wanted to see them increase their payload capacity, because there are some things that we would like to do that the big buses do, but we just don't have the weight capacity to do it. We would add more if we could have more weight.
If I'm reading my numbers right, Airstream Atlas, full tank of fuel, 2 adults in here, you can add approximately 1,000 pounds over that. Round numbers, might be 960.
Exactly.
Is that a fair number?
That is a fair number, and that's that number we're trying to give the customer to be able to manage. Is that we like that 4-digit number, but at times, depending on the model and the equipment, it could go a little less.
Now, with the new chassis, you'll be able to expand this a little bit
Well,
further?
that was the thing that we were hoping that they would do, and they haven't quite yet. But we are going to be adding some features from their end that are pretty nice.
And this is the technology, which I told you that we wanted to discuss. You have cruise control now. You have some sort of lane keeping assistant, but the new chassis is Distronic or adaptive cruise control.
That's right. It's adaptive. I've got it in my vehicles. It's great. You set it, forget it, and just steer it. It's fantastic.
I have it on my Prevost, and it's a 2014. And I tell people who've watched my, what's it like to drive a Prevost. I've done a segment driving through the mountains on a 45-foot, 50,000-pound motorhome, towing a 4-door Jeep, using the Prevost Aware, which is an adaptive cruise system. How much stress that removes from the ride.
I bet.
Truly, it makes driving a vehicle. I can only imagine what it's going to do for this. It's going to, because this is already, I'm going to understand, fairly easy to drive right up front.
It is. We add air ride in the rear because we think it's a better characteristics. Why Prevost added air in the big coaches. But that adaptive cruise control is going to be a real nice addition.
You think that'll be the big thing that they add?
That'll be the big thing, but we're now going to their infotainment center now. It's going to be a 10-inch screen, all touch screen.
So they've improved, because last time we talked, you got away from them and you went with Furrion.
That's right.
Because you didn't like their truck.
They didn't. It was more of a commercial, very basic. It wasn't like their C-Class or nothing like their automotives, but the new one is nice.
And you're going to have my favorite feature. CarPlay, Apple
Yes,
CarPlay or
Apple
Android.
CarPlay,
Yeah.
and I love it. I just got an F-150 that has it, and what a difference that makes.
You know, it truly does. I haven't seen a motorhome, but listen, the ones that I've walked through that are adding that, that's something that really is inexpensive to put in and take out a lot of that garbage.
Absolutely.
You know, you get that, you get a Garmin GPS, you're in good shape
set.
there. Okay, let's take this another step. Well, first let's finish up on the chassis. When will you start taking orders for the new chassis, or maybe you are, and when will they be delivered?
So here's the other thing that they've done. We build on the, as you see, the one over the short wheelbase. We build on the cutaway, and then we build on the extended one with our interstate. So we have 3 platforms. None of them are being done at the same time. So that's created a challenge on our end to phase those in, because once you start shipping the new generation, then the other ones look a lot older.
They do.
So, so we're looking to start shipping probably April, May timeframe. Fingers crossed.
So you have the chassis.
We just started to
in your
receive
possession.
them. But here's the challenge: they didn't ship prototypes in time for us to do our research and development. So it's a little frustrating because we have the chassis, but we haven't finished up the shop on the new. Just to make, like for example, on one of the models, they shifted the gas tank about 2 inches, which makes us retool the entire water tank.
2
which is
inches
a big,
on something like this is like
it's
a mile.
a major problem.
Yeah,
it shifts, and then there's a domino effect. Then you've got to change the wiring harness, and then you've got to vet all that out in the shop. So they're just now starting to ship, but we should start building on them in that April timeframe.
You're just going to start your prototype. You have to do one prototype to make sure you have the bugs out before you start.
We do a
doing
prototype.
molds.
Not a lot of manufacturers do that in the RV industry, but we actually do a full offline prototype in the R&D shop, and then we will run a pilot down the line to verify it from a production standpoint, and then at that point we can start ramping up.
Now, one thing you said, and we discussed it last year, and you brought it up again today, and you said, you know, when we've talked about in the past, who is the buyer for this? And, you know, sometimes people want to downsize, but they don't want to go the lack of quality. Well, I'm from a Prevost owner, or a Prevost owner who's looking to try something new. From my point of view, one of the things that makes that type of motorhome appealing is that it's a no-brainer when it comes to using power. For example, I'm going from Orlando and I'm going up to Hartside Grove in Michigan. I have a few nights to stop. One night I might be in a Walmart. I don't have to worry about anything electrical. I might be able to run my ACs for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time, depending on the weather. Then my generator will automatically kick in. I don't have to hit any buttons till the batteries are brought back up. Now, on these models, when I've looked around, it's not just Airstream, it's all of the, I guess you call them a Class B+. They don't work that way. You can't run the AC off of batteries. Lithium, you're starting to see that come in. Do you see these becoming as easy to use as a high-end motorhome?
That's some of the challenges we have with that weight capacity and some of the components that are driving that. Now, are your batteries lithium, or you just have a bigger bank of AGM?
I have a 50,000 pound bus, a few more pounds of battery.
So
I have not.
It's not a lithium solution for you.
You're seeing now on the newer Liberty coaches. Well, Liberty's been doing it for a number of years. But for the Prevost conversions, they're the leader. You're starting to see all the converters starting to add. But Liberty was the first to go with the Volta system, which has made its way into now the RV industry. And they appear to be the leader. I did an interview, I'll put a link up here with the president of the company, with Jack Johnson, I believe his name is, last year at the Prevost Expo. But you know, it seems that this would be ideal because lithiums are much lighter. You get a lot more. I know there's pros and cons to it, but do you think it's still a ways to go?
No, I don't think it's that far off, really. Lithium technology is getting, it's being cycled through to a point that we feel a little more comfortable with it. I don't know if you noticed, we actually have a small relationship with Tesla. They actually have 6 trailers. They do a mobile showroom. We've been trying to get a Tesla wall battery in one of these where we can really have fun with it. Elon hasn't called us back on that. We've talked to others in the organization.
Send him an Airstream. He'll talk to you.
And Elon does own an Airstream. So we know he's a fan of the brand. He's a little busy, I think, with the Model 3 this year. But we would love to partner with somebody who's a real authority in that space. One thing that they have in the residential that you don't have in, well, I guess maybe some cases you do, but the RV has the varying degree temperature changes when you're storing it. Like if I'm storing I have an interstate, right now it's about -2 degrees up in Columbus today with the wind chill, and then other days in the summer it's going to be really hot. And lithium you have to be very careful with how you manage that, where a car, is being used constantly, and a house is going to be temperature controlled. So we're not quite there yet. But what we have done is with the multiplex systems and our new Classic, which we hope to bring at some point to our motorhomes, where you can now check your tanks, check your batteries, all on a smartphone.
Remotely. See, and I'm able to do that on mine, but again, completely different price point.
But we are looking at it, and then we just added an auto gen start, which is a little bit of the older technology of the buses.
It's a nice feature.
But it is nice because once it recognizes batteries are down, but the air conditioner can't quite pull off those batteries.
Speaking of Tesla.
Yeah.
Okay, remember, again, around a year ago, Tesla shook up the world, showed their semi-autonomous, battery-operated semi-tractor trailer truck.
Yes.
You know, one way to get more space and more battery capacity is to take the engine out and put an electric motor in. In your prediction, how far are we away from that in reality, not only batteries, but semi-autonomous driving?
On the RV side, there is, I think we're still some time out, or time off on that, but the one thing that gives me hope on it, because I would love to see it sooner, is the fact that commercial vehicles, in my opinion, will be autonomous first, because they're on the highways most of the time. You take out the city driving, which adds a lot more.
You're talking about cargo hauling.
In general for autonomous. So if you look at semi-trucks, if you look at Sprinter work trucks, if you start looking at other things that are on the highway a lot more, I think they're going to start adding some of those features. If they start adding those features to commercial chassis, that'll give all RV manufacturers hopefully the opportunity of selecting it as an option for an RV. So at least maybe you have the Super Cruise feature when you're going down the highway and you're heading out west, which would even be better than the adaptive cruise control. If I were to guess on, I think that'll be first, kind of like that Super Cruise type of feature with Tesla, and Cadillac, I believe, has that now. I'm hoping that starts coming out the next 3 to 5 years, but I think further autonomy is probably a good bit out. They're gonna, it's going to be a little tougher.
Again, I realize for these types of vehicles, but wouldn't it be nice, especially as the demographic for any RV gets older, they're wonderful safety features. Now, last question, just a month or two after the show last year, you introduced another new product, which was your Nest. And it caught a lot of us off guard, including myself, that it wasn't your typical Airstream. It was more of a fiberglass or plastic. Today was the first day I've got to see one up close and personal. I got to tell you, it's impressive. How's it doing for you? You
know, it's off to a great start. We're actually getting more leads on that product than all of our iconic travel trailers in any given month. The press on it has been outstanding. It's been a ramp up. We've been getting dealers stocked up, but I would say what we're really after, we see a lot of Casita trade-ins on Airstream aluminum trailers. We see a lot of Oliver, Scamps. So
those are names that mean nothing to me.
So this is this whole little molded fiberglass community. Oh, okay. And each one of those manufacturers.
Oh, those are brands of
those are brands,
tiny
and
trailers.
All of them build and sell from the factory. And we thought, man, we could really add a lot of value. Number one, we like the category. We see a lot of those in on trade, and we can distribute them 65 dealers across North America, so you don't have to travel all the way to their factory to pick one up.
And it's lightweight enough. I mean, it's around the same weight as your Bambi or your sport model.
It is very close to that, but it's very automotive. Where Airstream has that iconic shape and just that character of the rivets, this is very smooth lines and automotive finish, and you know, that molded fiberglass process is pretty expensive.
And can you tow one of those behind the Atlas? I mean, are people doing that?
Yeah, you could. It's 5,000 pounds towing, so yes, you could. Okay. I haven't seen it. Occasionally we'll see an interstate towing a Bambi. It's not completely unusual.
Sometimes you need that extra bedroom space.
You do. Yeah. It's the guest quarters.
And because these days with Uber, once you get to your destination, it's not like you have to have a vehicle. Granted, you go out in the boonies, you're going to need it.
Or it's the doghouse for some of us.
Yeah. Well, Justin, I got to tell you, 2 years in a row, you've been extremely generous in your time. It's always fun to watch what Airstream's doing. You're such an iconic name in the industry. Again, congratulations on your promotion.
I appreciate it, Andy.
And thank you for, you're such a big sponsor of this show. I mean, it's just, when you come in, if you've never been to the show, the first thing you do when you walk in, you see Airstream. You see your iconic trailers. You see your touring coaches. It's just wonderful.
It's nice to be inside.
It is. You get air conditioning, and the weather's just gorgeous.
Yeah, the weather doesn't matter to us. We're always dry in here, so that's great.
Thank you so much for your time. And remember, if you like this video, you're probably going to like one of these. That's it for now. I'm the Gadget Guru, Andy Parr.